water. I know you've never seen water before, so that's called water. Exciting, I know. Anyway, so this is freshwater. Now, what defines it as being fresh is that it has a certain amount of salt in it still, of salts. It's not just salt, there are different salts, but not enough to make it brackish or salt water. It is a resource, and you can see people are using it. I'm a little bit sorry if you thought the beginning of the video was a little bit salty, but it's not. It's fresh. I told you that. Horrible joke. Anyway, we have fresh water where I'm at. Actually, right now, there's not any water around me except there are boats. You can see that. And there's vegetation. The one thing I will point out is any water body. We do need to worry about, if we're talking about the quality of the water, we're talking about biodiversity, how well we protect the edges, in this case, the littoral zone, freshwater lake. We could talk about riparian zone when we're talking about a river. So riparian buffers can do things like, if we're talking about rivers, similar to what these plants can do here, they can help filter some water. You can see even the invasive Phragmites back there can do a pretty good job at that. When we're dealing with a smaller water body, they lead to differences in temperature. So around a river, the trees that might be around it can cool the water down a bit and add some nutrients with their leaves. And yes, there's some nutrients that are added here as well. I'll talk more specifically about what this place has and what it's used for in a second. So Spruce Run, which is where I'm at, was set up as a place where we can, in New Jersey, conserve water as a resource and manage it as a resource. What they're using it for today, obviously, is boating. Sometimes they can swim in it. Today, swimming is not allowed. I'm not sure if that's because of water quality. I mean, sometimes there's harmful algal blooms. I'm not even sure if they're allowed to boat in that. There's something called boatable water versus potable water versus swimmable water. So these are different definitions, often in terms of E. coli contamination, but also other things. So realize that you wouldn't be able to swim in it if there was a harmful algal bloom, which with eutrophication and nutrients getting into the water, that makes it more common and may also have other links to things going on. But this, again, sees water as a resource. And the idea is, and fresh water is a resource, so is salty water, but easier to see fresh water as a resource. But we're surrounded by hills. You can see that a little bit in the landscape. And one thing to remember at all times is water is, especially we're dealing with surface water, which is connected to groundwater, water is dependent upon hydrology. It's going to fill in a place that this one's a reservoir, so it's artificial as well, but fill in the low points. It's going to run downhill. It's called gravity. Brings things downhill. So if you were setting something like this up, you make a depression, deal with the water filtration into the soil. You might have to do something with the soil in order to retard it from just completely draining through, especially if it's sandier soil or gravel, which is a type of soil. So again, this is water as a resource. We'll talk a little bit more in a second. Since we are in Spruce Run, that is managing water as a resource, I want to speak a little bit about fresh water as a resource. Now, 96.5% of the water on Earth is in our oceans. The rest of that, some of it is fresh water and some of it is available to us. We're really talking about, if you read some estimates that are out there, maybe between 0.3% that is available The USGS gives a little different number as well. And we could be talking about surface water, which is sometimes rivers, lakes, not liver, that's not delicious at all. Anyway, lakes. And we do have groundwater as well. And I do also want to remind you that talk about aquifers, they have a surface component often, and then connect that to the groundwater. All of this is connected. So when we drain, for example, if we drain the surface water, pollute the surface water, it does have an effect on our groundwater as well. Water infiltrates through the soil, can be, if we have an aquifer that's lined on the bottom, so it stops that, there's less permeability at the bottom and it collects that water. And then we can have a surface component of that that often we use, and sometimes we do use groundwater directly as well. The amount of water is often not the problem, it's the distribution and the cleanliness of it. Look, if it's polluted and you can't drink it, that's not of very much use.